Hello, this is Matt on the Moon Lambo channel, and folks, fortunately today I've got some really bad news for you. There's an XRP killer on the loose. That's right, there's an XRP killer out there. It's gonna kill XRP up. There'll be no more XRP, because it'll be killed. Look at this headline from CoinDesk. Stablecoin giant Circle is launching a new payments and remittance network. That's right, folks. We've got a new heavyweight in the space, seeking to engage in cross-border payments utilizing crypto and blockchain technology, but that's what XRP is for. Well, that's one thing that Ripple is using XRP for. That's also, by the way, not the only thing that Ripple is using XRP for. So are we actually in trouble here? Oh my God, somebody else is trying to compete. Folks, the answer is no. I've been hearing that so many things are the Ripple killer for the whole 7+ years I've been an XRP holder. And it was being stated well before that even. It's just not true. And I'll explain why. But before going further, I do want to be clear. I do not have a financial background of any kind. I am not offering financial advice. And you definitely should not buy or sell anything because of anything I say are right. I'm just an enthusiast who enjoys making YouTube videos about crypto-related topics, but just as a hobby and just for fun. Now, let me quickly highlight that this XRP Killer Statement, it's been out there for years and years and years. And I highlighted just a few examples so that we can, mock them all together. Here you have a post from, looks like March of 2019. That's right, folks. 6 years ago, here's the headline: The Return of Crypto Decorum. JPM coin, the XRP killer. That's right, folks. JPM coin, the bank coin. That was going to kill it. No need for XRP. Now, of course, there was an article. I should have pulled it up for this video. I've shared it a handful of times over the years, but Brad Garlinghouse, he wrote a piece. He actually shared it on LinkedIn of all places. It might have been like in 2016. I can't remember. And he made the argument against Bankcoin. And he's basically highlighting that if you're going to make your own coin, it has to be backed by something, right? So like if it's a USD based coin, for example, then as JPM coin here would have been, then it would be backed by either the actual US dollar or something that's very equivalent, a monetary equivalent that you can get in and out of very quickly. So it has to actually be backed. But anyways, regardless, that's still all about the actual dollar. And so then what you're doing is recreating all the old friction of the existing system in a new shell effectively. So you can do it, and even if there are technological efficiencies that you pick up by using certain aspects of this new technology, fine, but then there's still a bigger question, which I'm going to get into a little bit more in the video here, but I want you to understand something at the outset. Before we even delve into like the additional arguments as to why this is stupid, understand all of these coins are coins that are backed by something. And if you're talking about flows, touching the United States, then you're talking about the US dollar typically backing something. That's the same thing with any of these bank coins. It's the same thing if it's a central bank digital currency, and it is the same thing if you're talking about a stable coin. It's all backed by something. That is not true of XRP though. XRP is not backed by anything. More on that though in a second. I'm going to circle back to that. Let's finish making fun of some of these headlines first. Here's another one from 6 years ago. This is from Bitcoinist, of course. Big banks announce fiat-pegged XRP killer crypto for settlements. There we go. So a big bank tries to do something that's a little bit different in the world of cross-border payments. It's immediately an XRP killer. We're all screwed. XRP goes to zero. And of course that ignores the fact that XRP does more than one thing. I mean, if this kills XRP, then doesn't it kill anything else? So if that weren't a use case that a company were trying to do with XRP, would it still kill XRP? Because for instance, nobody's reasonably trying to do that with Bitcoin. I mean, you can talk about Jack Mallers. I don't know that he's getting any traction with that, with his company Strike. But then if this comes in and then Bitcoin can't be used as a bridge, does that mean Bitcoin's dead? Is that how the logic works here? Or is this just stupid? Well, the answer is it's stupid. Here's another one. This is from June 7th, 2021 from Finance Feeds. Ripple lurks as R3 and Finality, aka XRP Killer, power new FX swaps platforms. I just want to highlight there's no shortage of these examples. It's been stated over and over and over again. Hell, even remember the FedNow system? That actually started out it being labeled as another XRP killer. I was like, bitch, you don't even know what you're talking about saying that stuff, because the FedNow system, by the way, that's a domestic payment system. It has nothing to do with bridging from one fiat currency to another fiat currency. It's not even the same thing. But there's always something getting touted as the XRP killer. And now we got the new one here today. Now, it's kind of funny, though, because, so check this out. When we got the news, over a year ago that Ripple had decided to launch a stablecoin, RLUSD, which was finally launched in December 2024. Initially, the Circle CEO was praising Ripple for launching their own stablecoin. And so check this out. Jeremy Allaire, the CEO of stablecoin issuer Circle, has welcomed Ripple's entrance into the market. Earlier today, crypto firm Ripple revealed plans to launch a stablecoin that would be 100% backed by US dollar deposits, government bonds, and cash equivalents. In response, Allaire said it was encouraging, that's a quote, encouraging to see more companies taking a compliance-first approach to building on-chain dollars. Okay, so nice that he had a forward-facing, polite response to that. Of course, they recognize that Ripple's getting into their world, stepping on the feet a little bit, right? Because that's what they do. So, like, Ripple's already doing all this other stuff, and what? You now, in addition to, engaging in custody on an enterprise level, don't forget that they bought Medico. Now they have to have it all, and they have to launch a stable coin, but that's what USDC does, right? So it's kind of funny to think that as a result, like after that, they decided to jump into Ripple's world, just like Ripple, which is fine. This is I have no problem with this whatsoever, just to be clear. Just like Ripple was jumping in to compete in a new arena with a stablecoin issuer Circle, they jumped into Ripple's world, and they're trying to do what Ripple's doing. So it's basically another company trying in a different type of way, though, to solve the same problem. So here's the headline. Stablecoin giant Circle is launching a new payments and remittance network. Circle, the firm behind the $60 billion USDC stablecoin, is launching a new payments and cross-border remittance network on Tuesday, the company's next product move from its plush New York City headquarters high on the 87th floor of One World Trade Center. The launch event is aimed at banks, fintechs, payment service providers, remittance providers, and USDC strategic partners. It will feature Circle CEO Jeremy Allaire sharing his vision for the stablecoin giant's next move within the payment space, according to an invite seen by CoinDesk. And so that's enough. Now, as far as how the sausage is made and all the specifics, I haven't seen a ton of that made publicly available, but you can kind of understand if you've been in the space a little while, especially, you can easily understand what a flow might typically look like here. And so there's this post that popped up in my feed from XRP community member Brie Teresi, and this is a good argument. It's one of the many things I've been saying on this topic since I started this damn YouTube channel. Actually, even before that, I wrote a blog before this. It's now defunct, but I was talking about it back then. And so here's what Brie had to say. Ripple's ODL has a big advantage over Circle, and here's why. USDC moves fast, but it still needs to be cashed out into local currency to actually be used in the real world for paying a vendor in yen or payroll in euros. And so, folks, I'll pause a note here. Ripple Payments, utilizing XRP as a bridge currency, indeed does just that. And it's all automatically routed. So the end user at a remittance firm or a customer of a bank, whoever it is, they wouldn't even know that XRP is being used, frankly. But that's kind of the point. It's used in the plumbing. They don't have to know about that. And then, so anyway, liquidity is sourced in one geographic region, moved to another geographic region, sold there, and then so it's converted into whatever the local currency is. That's what it actually does right there, right? And so as far as what Circle is doing here, presumably, and I would love to see if anybody can find anything else, because again, this would be more about how the sausage is made. If anybody can find a specific example flow, let me know. Presumably, it's going to be a similar type of situation. There have been other quote-unquote solutions over the years that have also been labeled as XRP killers using stablecoins, where they actually do just move the stablecoin from one region to another, but it's not about having it exit into a specific liquidity, so it's not necessarily bridging anything even. It depends on which program you're talking about. And so I look at stuff like that, and I'm like, well, if you want to do that, that's fine, but then understand what you're actually doing is you have to onboard people into the world of crypto to use those things, whereas with Ripple Payments, you don't have to do that. It's used in the background. That's a very key difference right there. So if you want to do a thing where you've got to onboard more crypto users to get more adoption, that's fine. Go for it. That might be a great end goal anyway. I'm just saying right now, people engaging in these transactions don't know that XRP is used in the plumbing. That's a pretty cool thing about it. So you can scale quickly without all these people knowing that they're actually in a roundabout way getting advantages from XRP specifically. They won't even know that they're involved in crypto in any capacity. So anyway, she said here again, USDC moves fast, but it still needs to be cashed out into local currency to actually be used in the real world for paying a vendor in yen or payroll in euros. To do that, Circle and their partners still need bank accounts in different countries. That's just the old system in disguise. Pre-funded accounts hidden behind APIs. Now, folks, that is the same argument that Ripple CEO Brad Garlinghouse is making in 2016 on that article I referenced. I don't remember the title of it. It's something. If you Google, if you're curious, it's Google something like Brad Garlinghouse LinkedIn, the case against Bankcoin. It's something like that. You can find what I'm talking about there. And I have shared it on the channel multiple times. That's one of the things he's talking about. I remember that. So in that sense, it's the same. And so if you can have enough platforms adopt an individual, currency, there's that fine. But the point is that, especially for exotic currencies, there's a reason that you need in Swift anyway, historically, this bilateral chain of banking relationships, because you're not going to have trading pairs for everything that can possibly exist. That's another benefit for XRP, which is always glossed over and not understood by so many. XRP, it is jurisdictionless. It can be used anywhere. It's not backed by anything. Any of these stablecoins, central bank digital currency, a bank coin, they're all backed. They all have to be backed by something. They don't have some sort of open market price like XRP does. That's why XRP is jurisdictionless. And so there should be no jurisdiction where it's a problem. If somebody doesn't want to be friendly to, a particular stablecoin because it's backed by the US dollar, and maybe there's a geopolitical reason where you don't want to play nice with the US, that stuff can happen. That's my point. If you have something that's jurisdictionless, that's an additional benefit right there. And so it was never my stance that additional competitors wouldn't get traction and wouldn't find some level of success. It's not going to be one company dominates this and there are no competitors. I've never believed that. But there's a place for a jurisdictionless cryptocurrency that's technologically sufficient and has an open market price to fulfill this role. And Ripple's the only firm on the planet that is using a cryptocurrency labeled as such, as I just described, for that purpose. They're the only ones. You can find, centralized stable coins, sure. But those will work in specific corridors, and okay, fine. But let's not pretend like there are no benefits if a coin is decentralized. For many instances, there absolutely are multiple benefits. Okay, so that's why, again, there's so many complexities and dynamics to this. There never will be one coin to rule them all. That was never going to be the case. But there are always people over the years who'd be like, look, a stable coin can do this. That eliminates XRP's use case. No, it doesn't, you idiot stick. It absolutely doesn't. It depends on specifics. But there's more to it than just that. Look, Ripple has a gigantic head start. They've been doing this for a while, right? If you want to compete against Ripple, and Circle does, fine. Go compete directly head-to-head against Ripple. You understand that means that you need to have a sales team. You need to onboard new customers, these remittance firms, these banks. You need to implement the technology. You need to have 24/7, 365, literally round-the-clock support for these firms. You got to implement it. You got to have all the software in place. So that means you got your team. Go for it. If you want to do that, that's a business model. Go ahead and compete for that. I'm just telling you, if you're launching that in 2025, you're a decade behind Ripple. So if you can catch up, just like Ripple is way behind technically. You can argue they're behind USDC, but here's what I think. Frankly, it's given the position Ripple's in and their variable war chest monetarily, they can probably dominate the world of stablecoins quicker than stablecoin could catch up and start dominating in the world of cross-border payments. That would be my guess. Because again, with where's RLUSD mostly going to be used? It's with people that are already in the world of crypto, right? Mostly. Not exclusively, but mostly. Okay? But then if you're talking about using USDC as a bridge currency, if that's what they're going to do, that's way harder, because then you have to go fight. You have to go fight to get this. That's harder. You have to get all sorts of... that would be my gut instinct. If anybody thinks I'm wrong about that, you tell me. I'm guessing that's a harder battle, though. So anyway, then Brie says, so while Circle speeds things up inside its network, it still relies on slow traditional banking outside of it. Ripple's ODL skips all that. No pre-funding, no parked capital, just real-time global payments using XRP as the bridge currency. That's the difference. Yeah, and so as far as the Nostra Vostra account, the pre-funding, all that stuff, that's very obviously true. That's a benefit. Now, as far as the end user is concerned, from a price structure, and if you can sufficiently source liquidity, even if it's a stable coin, it just depends here. Because keep in mind, Ripple's doing that too now. So there's a conversation here. Panos, who is actually a developer building on top of the XRP ledger, he's a co-founder of Anodos Finance. He was highlighting this news. And so somebody asked him, said, Circle doesn't have its own blockchain and doesn't solve the problem of pre-funding accounts, Nostra Vostro. Really competitors, question mark? And here's what Panos had to say about that. He said, Ripple doesn't have their own blockchain either. But also, in that case, it's a benefit since they leverage all the 15 plus blockchains that USDC is on and source liquidity from the best one. And so, folks, to be clear, in case you didn't know, the USDC, the stablecoin, it is on a bunch of different blockchains. That is indeed the case. And so even if they're the entity that's minting this, it's on a ton of chains that have already gotten adoption the world over, right? And so that's the direction that Ripple's going to go with RLUSD. It's already on the XRP ledger. It's already on Ethereum. I'm sure it'll be on many others in the future as they continue to get traction here. But that just means that if there is sufficient liquidity, they can use the existing liquidity to complete these transactions. Because if there's not, and I don't think this would be a volume problem for them at first, because to start you have 0 customers. You have some relationships you can leverage, so maybe you can get customers quickly. But if you actually didn't have enough liquidity, you'd have to just mint more USDC. And if that's the case, and it's the question of how quickly can you do that, and can you increase, and if you need to decrease, like, can you do that quickly? What's that look like? And that's more about how the sausage is made, and I don't have the answer on that specifically, but that is a consideration that you'd be looking at here. Anyway, and then Panos says, as for pre-funding, the functionality is the same as Ripple's, especially now that Ripple uses RLUSD2 instead of XRP. Now, the game is in the details, innovation, and adoption. Ripple has the resources to do more things, so let's see. Right, so as far as being the pre-funding and all the rest of this stuff, so obviously XRP, it just has an open market price. There's nothing backing it, and I already talked about that. But as far as pre-funding, if you're talking about using RLUSD as a stable coin as a bridge currency, well, yeah, actually, that is actually backed, and Ripple is doing that, just to be clear. You may recall that as a result of what happened in the SEC v. Ripple lawsuit, Ripple was actually using not just XRP as a bridge currency, but for any corridor touching the United States, it was using Tether, because they couldn't use XRP because that stupid aspect of how the case ended. Even though XRP was found not to be a security, there was still a problem on the institutional side. Okay. So then Ripple announced they're launching RLUSD, and so as soon as that happened, I was like, well, they're going to use that instead of Tether. Duh, that's a no-brainer. And so, of course, they are. That's what they're doing here. That still is backed, but they're doing it in corridors where it makes sense. In this case, touching the United States. Otherwise, why wouldn't they push for XRP? They're the ones that control it, right? So that would make sense. But even if you're worried about RLUSD taking over that role for XRP, which you shouldn't, well, here's why. Every single transaction using RLUSD on the XRP ledger uses XRP too, because XRP is a gas token in that instance. So even if RLUSD, even if that stablecoin were the only token that Ripple was going to use, which isn't the case, but even if it were, XRP is still being used in that instance. Either way, XRP wins. So look, there was never going to be one entity that gets all of remittances for this particular type of use case, and it just doesn't matter. And it's just fine. XRP has been getting adoption for this for many, many, many years. It's not like it's going to go away. And I always like to throw this question back around. If it's the case that Circle coming in is an XRP killer, why is the inverse not true? Why is it not the case that XRP is the killer? Why does XRP have to be the one that's getting killed? Why isn't XRP the killer of JP Morgan coin or any of those, the UBS coin or all that other crap? It's always thrown one way. Oh, there's a new competitor, therefore XRP loses. No. That's not how this works. It is very difficult to get something in motion like this. So again, if they want to come along, that's fine. It's not going to kill XRP. And there are tons of other use cases for XRP. For instance, I've been talking about this forever. Real world assets being tokenized on the XRP ledger. That requires XRP. There are multiple reasons that XRP has very genuine utility. It's not going away. And competition is not a bad thing. It's fine. So nothing to be fearful about. But those are some reasons that this isn't something that's going to destroy XRP or something like that. That was never the case here. But it is interesting that after Ripple jumped into Circle Sandbox, Circle jumped into Ripple Sandbox. It's kind of funny, right? How about that? I'm not a financial advisor. You should not buy or sell anything because of anything I say or write. That would be a very, very, very bad idea. Until next time, to the moon, Lambo.